move forward with that. It would be very nice if they did. And I can hardly wait for that. So I'm really looking forward to those who are wondering what's going on and just now coming into ufology to be able to actually be aware of what really is happening. I know a lot of people are kind of shocked that this is all coming into mainstream media just right now. And yet it is, and we're glad of it. But I know that it's going to be difficult for a lot of people to wrap their minds around what many of us in ufology have known for many, many years. And so hang with us here at MUFON. We're going to be a part of that movement and help everybody understand what is happening. Okay, so anyway, the biggest news for us here at MUFON, I will say, is that MUFON Symposium is full steam ahead. And we are having it in August, and we'll be talking about that a little bit later. But we do have it confirmed that MUFON registration is now open online at MUFON.com. So please go to MUFON. They'll direct you to the MUFON Symposium sign up. And we're going to be there this year, and we can't wait. It's just going to be so wonderful to be with all of our friends. They're like family at this point. I mean, you know, we have so many people that we've been working with for so many years, and I am so looking forward to it. And in a little bit, I'll share some of the speakers that we've got. So hang tight for that, okay? So let's get started. Tonight, I'm your host, Terry Lynn Keel. And what is MUFON? Let's talk about what MUFON actually is. I have all my things behind me here, so instead of in front of me as usual. We are the oldest and largest UFO investigative organization in the world, with a huge member base adding to it daily. And we're represented in all 50 states and 40 countries with thousands of trained volunteers. And we're always changing those volunteers out. So many people rise up to become ASDs, SDs, or CIs, or SSDs. And we've got over 50 PhD consultants in most disciplines. And MUFON does conduct scientific investigations of the UFO phenomenon, while others are all just UFO reporting agencies. We are the boots on the ground, and we do the hard work. We were established in 1969, and for the past 51 years, MUFON has compiled a database of over 175,000 UFO reports. The CMS, which is known as the Case Management System to all of those who are a part of MUFON, was developed in 2006, and we have now evolved, and we now monitor abduction cases and entity cases, which are regularly reported to our CMS. Our MUFON, I guess you'd say our guideline, our scientific method, is that the study of UFOs for the benefit of humanity. And how we do that, actually, how we investigate is field investigators apply the scientific method of investigation in the following manner. We establish a hypothesis, then we set out to prove or disprove the hypothesis. The hypothesis is this event can be explained rationally, and we set out to prove it. Sometimes we need to consult with experts in order to find the necessary proof we're looking for in the end, but we succeed in proving this hypothesis 95% of the time. About 2 to 3% of the cases are truly unexplained, and that is not a trivial conclusion, seeing that 2 to 3% are hundreds of thousands of cases that we work with yearly worldwide. The scientific conclusion from this data is that there are unexplained events in our world that are genuinely worthy of further scientific investigation. We are not alone, and we are proving that here at MUFON. Our mission statement is that we investigate UFO sightings, abductions, and entity cases. We promote research on UFOs with an eye towards science, and we educate the public on the UFO phenomenon, and we really do. We've got a board of directors here, and John Schuessler is our founding member. He is an original. It all started in his garage 51 years ago. David McDonald is our executive director, doing an amazing job with MUFON these days. Tom Whitmore, myself, Debbie Ziegelmeyer, Rob Switek, Richard Beckwith, Sandy Clevin, and Ken St. John. These are the people that work endlessly for MUFON, and I thank them all. But of all the UFO reports that are received, approximately 15% are real solid objects. The others are misidentifications, optical illusions, stars, planets, hoaxes, and sometimes just things that people make mistakes about. So, but what about those remaining 15%? And that's really why I'm here. That's what brought me to MUFON, was having my own experiences and needing questions and having nowhere to go to get bona fide, solid information about what happened to me. That's the reason for MUFON's existence. And we do want to hear your story. It means everything to us to hear that. We're glad you're here to share it. You're not alone, and no experience will ever be too bizarre for us to hear. That's why we're here. Our experiencer research team, in case you have had something that's been very troubling and difficult for you, is dedicated to helping experiencers of alien contact. And our new director is Gwen Farrell. And if you're interested in touching base with someone from the ERT, if you're struggling with something that happened to you, you can confidentially fill out a paper with them, a questionnaire, experiencer questionnaire at mufon.com/experiencerquestionnaire.html. So please do. And you can also find all this information at mufon.com. And a little bit of MUFON business for us. As MUFON's Director of Membership, I want to invite you all to join if you haven't, because members are our strength and our backbone, and we need you to join. We want you to join. And for that, we include an electronic or hard copy monthly journal, and that includes articles by leading ufologists, UFO sightings, symposiums, one-on-one interviews, the latest information about what's happening in the world, abduction cases, mutilations, and crop circles, just to name a few, and all of that for $59.88 a year. So just log on to MUFON.com to join. You can upgrade if you'd like. We have upgrades available for MUFON TV, which is amazing. It's like having your own video file. And you can also upgrade the membership to include MUFON TV. And if you join for the $119.88 for the whole year, you get the live stream from our symposium, and that is a huge benefit to you. So please do join. Just go to MUFON.com. All the links are on our webpage. Thank you so much. That's MUFON.com. And you can report your experience there if you haven't, even if your experience is 30 years old. It wouldn't matter. We will still categorize it and look for others that are in resemblance to what you're reporting. So please do so. We look forward to hearing from you for your reporting. Our 51st annual MUFON Symposium that's coming up, that is the wrong date. It's August. And so our date is in August, and you can go to MUFON.com to get that date. It's the 26th through the 30th, I believe, is what I'm thinking. It is in Las Vegas, and that's our old date, but we did move the date back, so I will update that slide. I apologize for that. You can register online at mufonsymposium.com, and Nick Pope is going to be one of our speakers. Of course, George Knapp. He's going to be talking about the task force and the secret UFO investigations. Nick is going to be talking about a perspective from inside of the government. Robert Salas is going to be talking about extreme secrecy and the escalating risk of nuclear war. Rendlesham Update will be by Charles Halt. Kevin Day is talking about the Nimitz Tic Tac incident. Oscar Santamaria is going to be talking about his military encounter with a UFO. And James Goodall, how to gather information at Area 51 without getting arrested. And we will have Katie Cook as our MC and so many others. As you can see there, I don't have all the speaking information, but this is who will be there. And we do have some that will be announced. We have 2 more that will be announced, to be announced. So please sign up. If you're interested in becoming a field investigator, we have a field investigators, like a boot camp, not the boot camp, but it's a training session there at the symposium that you can sign up for. And we'd love for you to do that. Join our team and be one of us. I promise you, your life will never be the same. Of that, I'm sure. And then we also have our MUFON store where we sell t-shirts and pens, cups, all kinds of things. We've got our MUFON logo emblazoned go bags and masks and zippered portfolios, shoe caddies, and of course books. We've got a bookstore. So please visit us at MUFON.com. And as you can see, there's drop down spaces there for you to hit, and we have a store. I have with me tonight some of our shirts on sale for $20. They've normally been $25, but I'm selling them now at the meetings for $20. They're $25 online. But we do have some, and we have also a very new shirt, and that is the one over here with the alien. I don't know if people can see it, but if you're interested in purchasing one and you're online, you can go to DOM@MUFON.com. That's Director of Memberships, DOM@MUFON.com, and order yours, and I'll get it right out to you. Thank you so much. So next month, we are going to have Jennifer Stein talking about crop circles. And she's been over to England and has experienced them and has sat inside of them and will share with us her experiences and other places that she's been. But that will be May 22nd, right here. That's 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Central. And this will be also a combined, all of our future meetings will be combined. So just register at MUFONmeetings.com. MUFON UFO sighting stats, which are always interesting to me. March of 2021, our MUFON reports were a total of 591 UFO sightings, and in the United States, 479, United Kingdom, 29, Canada, 32. I've only listed a few because you can find out all of this as well at MUFON.com. But California had 66, Florida had 31, Texas 29, and Tennessee 7. And our witness reports were mostly impressive. There were 16 landings, hoverings, or takeoffs reported, and 15 entities were seen by people. So those were observed and reported. Tonight, I'm going to share just a little bit very quickly. I try to share a little bit quickly each month about something that I have experienced to share with you. So our people online can get to know me a little better, just like you can. And in February 10th of 2012, my son and I, Joshua, were on a mother-son date night, and we were in Tampa, Florida. We'd gone to dinner, Maggiano's, and then we went to the AMC to see a movie. And on our way home, I had asked my son to buckle up because we had to drive all the way over the bridge and then into St. Pete. So we were pretty far from home, maybe 40 miles, something like that. And so he kept saying, "Oh, I'm not going to buckle up tonight, Mom. I just think that something weird is going to happen." And I said, "Don't be funny, buckle up. You know, it's the law." And he was really giving me a hard time about it. And he said, "No, I think something bizarre is going to happen." And, you know, then I was getting very curt, buckle up. And so, you know, finally he's just saying, "Just drive, I'll be fine." And I was very angry with him. So that's how our night started, going home. And so we were leaving Tampa, which is right there. And we were traveling over the bridge. It's called the Howard Franklin. And as you can see, there's water on both sides. It's just a beautiful bridge, absolutely stunning. And all of a sudden, to my left, as I'm driving in the fast lane, I noticed these 3 lights. And it just stunned me when I looked at the 3 lights. And I thought to myself, this is crazy. And I said, "Josh, look at those three lights. I said, something's very bizarre about those. And he was making fun of me. Oh, I'm sure it's going to be a UFO, Mom. I'm sure it's a UFO. And so in making fun of me, I asked him, just humor me and watch those lights. And so as we got a little bit farther over to the 4th Street area of this, as you can see here, they started to move. And these three lights were now hovering more on the land than over the water, but they were such bizarre lights. One was huge, and then another one was pretty big, and then a real small one. And I thought, that's not an airplane, that's not a helicopter, that's nothing. Even though MacDill Air Force Base is right over there, I thought, who knows, maybe it's MacDill, but I was feeling like it wasn't. And so I kept telling him, just watch. I'm in the fast lane. We're in pretty heavy traffic. We're coming home. And so these are just, recreations of, what we experienced. This is not the day. So I don't want you to think that, but it looks like that all the time, believe me. So as we were crossing over, the lights, as you can see them there, they actually went right over the interstate, but they had stopped. And I thought, come on, there is nothing, not a chopper, nothing that could stop like that and just hover like that without, anybody looking up or being concerned about it. And they were way too big to be a chopper or a plane. So as we're heading down, moving closer to the end of the bridge, the lights just got larger, and now we're coming closer and closer still. And both of us, saw that they were hovered right over Sawgrass Lake, and that's right there on my trip home. So as I'm looking at this, I'm telling Josh, and now he is very much engaged. He is like, oh my God, Mom, I don't know what that is. And he's trying to figure it out. And he's telling me, that's not a plane. That's not a helicopter. I don't know what that is, Mom. And he said, but those are huge lights. Something's wrong. And I said, I know, just keep your eyes on those while I'm driving because I'm so limited in what I can actually see. So Sawgrass Lake is this big, it's like a park area for people local to St. Petersburg, Florida. And so as we're coming into St. Pete now, we had already passed the Derby Lane area and all that. And now we're here and the lights just stopped and hovered. And as we approached Sawgrass Lake Park, the lights hovered over a specific group of trees. And this caught my eye. Now it's no longer on the left, it's on the right-hand side of me. And I'm still watching these. And as I'm looking at these, I'm shocked. Nobody is slamming on their brakes or pounding the horn, but something happened at that moment that changed both Joshua and I forever. They morphed. They literally morphed into a triangular craft with lights around it. And Josh was in literal shock. He was now screaming. He actually was making fun of me earlier, and now he's screaming. He's, in a panic. He just can't hardly believe what he's seeing. And we're both looking at this, and then all of a sudden, it just starts lowering itself down into the tree line. Now, what's bizarre is you couldn't hear anything. It wasn't shaking any of the trees. And, if something were a helicopter, you'd be seeing the trees whacking back and forth, just from the wind. But that wasn't happening. And no one behind me was slamming on their brakes. And I'm like, they obviously can see this, but I don't know that they did because nobody did. So at any rate, we kept on going. And that particular day, they had sectioned off the only way that you could get off. They had sectioned off 54th Avenue North. And so I was pretty limited. I had to go beyond it to the next exit, which was 22nd Avenue, and then turn around and come back because we wanted to come back and see what was happening with this thing. So when we turned around, we came back and we could not find anything. When I got home, I had said to Joshua, you go in the other room, take a paper and pencil, you write down what you saw. I'm going to go in this room. I'm just going to write down what I saw. And these are our actual, what we actually did. Now, this was my car, and as you can see, I can't draw. It looks like a piece of bread with little things hanging off of it. But at any rate, that's how close we were. And from the 3 lights, it just did this. And he also saw the 3 lights from his perspective. I saw these 3 things here, and then it just turned. And so he was sitting, of course, on the passenger side, so he could see a lot better than I could, because I had to duck down to look as we were passing it. So that happened at 6:42 p.m. And I happened to look at the car's, time, because I kept thinking, what if there's missing time here? I need to record the time. So I did. I kept recording the time in my head, and we did not have missing time. However, I was watching it to make sure that we didn't. So that's what's happened. And when we got home, we also looked on the internet for other things that had been seen in the area, and this is what came up. So other people in Tampa had in fact seen this. So I thought that that was very interesting, and we reported it to MUFON. This was a little blurb that we took off the internet that somebody else had filmed. This is not my film, but at that time, this was what someone else had brought up, which I thought was very interesting. I don't know how long that goes on, but. I forgot how long it is, but later on, it zooms in more, you can see it does zoom in more, and you can see that it looks like 1 light, but that's actually more than 1 light. I'm sure Richard has seen many videos just like this, being a field investigator here with Tennessee MUFON. I don't want to take too much time on it though. So we'll close that out. But at any rate, that is one of the experiences that Joshua and I had. He was going to make it tonight, but because he's in Springville, I always have a hard time with these names of these cities because we're new to Paris. In Springville, he thought it was going to be raining, so he didn't want to try to come on down. Oh, hi, come on in. So tonight, our presentation will be with Denise Stoner, High Desert Experience, and let me just introduce you to her. Denise Stoner is a valued member of MUFON's ERT and STAR team. She's an assistant state director with Florida MUFON and has held an FI, CI, and SSD position. She's also had a state directorship helping one of the previous state directors in the state. So she has done just about everything in MUFON. And she is an author, a speaker, presenter, and co-authored and published her first book, The Alien Abduction Files, which was released in May of 2013 with Kathleen Marden. She holds educational forums for public and private gatherings for abduction experiencers. Her involvement in the UFO field spans more than 35 years. She is also a retired scuba instructor, cave diver, and former research member of the National Speleological Society Cave Diving Section. She is a retired military recruiter who did background investigations for recruits seeking highly classified clearances for work on nuclear submarines. And she has also worked at the Naval Air Warfare Center Training Systems Division as a training coordinator. Denise holds an educational background in business and psychology and is a certified hypnotist, specializing in regressive hypnosis. She has taught classes in stress reduction for 20 years for professionals in such fields as medicine and law. She began her research in hypnosis under Dr. Bob Romack in Denver, Colorado, and they worked together for 5 years on pain control, smoking cessation, and past life regression research. Denise also worked as a paranormal investigator in the homes of abductees that felt that they had been visited by spirits following abductions. And she recorded evidence of the development of psychic abilities in individuals following their experiences with UFOs and ETs, and worked on a team with Dr. Romack studying abductees' abilities to locate missing people and predict future events. Her hypnotist certifications came through hypnosis and regression, the training at the Hypnotic Research Society by Dr. Ronald P. DeVasto, and Advanced Regression Study through the National Guild of Hypnotists, Incorporated, by Donald J. Motten. Please join me tonight in welcoming my very good friend and colleague to United MUFON and Paris MUFON. Hi, Denise.
Hi, Terry. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful, and I'm so glad to have you here with us. Can everybody see her and hear her okay? All is well. Okay, good. All right, so it's weird. Your picture is over there, but I'm looking over here. So I guess you probably see me as looking at you, hopefully.
I do.
Okay.
I do.
Okay. I can't see you unless I turn my head. So if I do, just, understand. So you were going to share with us, because you have had some amazing personal experiences with your husband years ago. And it's one of my favorite stories, really, because it was so profound, and it definitely changed your life and made you so aware of what was happening, really happening. And I guess you're going to share that with us tonight.
I am. I am.
Okay, well, take it away. I'll sit back and relax.
All right. Sounds good.
Okay.
Okay. Sure. Well, I guess I'd like to begin by saying I'm an experiencer from age 2.5. But the most profound event in my life was one that took place in August of 1982 in an area called South Park, Colorado. It was a great glacier valley that was wide open, still is. There's only a ranch or two, one at one end and another a couple of hours down the road. There is a very tiny town called Jefferson, and it is on the Denver side, headed down across that park. So we were coming in one early evening. We always wanted to get to a campsite we had early while the sun was still up, because that way, any problem during the trip, we could get some help, because we didn't have cell phones back then. So we were stopped in a place we always pulled over just to take a break before we took the final hour and a half to 2 hours across to our campsite. And I was looking down at the little town, Jefferson, and off to the left, out in the high desert, where there was just nothing, no trees, cactus, nothing. I saw bright lights, two of them, and they were in the wrong place. They shouldn't have been there. So I continued to watch, got back in the car, and we pulled down the side of the mountain and headed for the valley. And as we did, I was just observant. The sun had not set, as I said. Across from me, I could see the collegiate peaks as Mount Harvard and all the other collegiates there, looking to see if there was snow still on the peaks, which that could be year round. We were headed for an area called Trout Creek Pass. We had to climb that in the car when we got to the other side to get to the little town of Buena Vista. Our campsite was 7 to 9 miles from there. So I'm watching the lights and I'm watching the little town. And on that road, on that highway, there were snow barriers made out of wooden frames standing up so that during a blizzard, the truckers coming through would not get blasted or pushed off the road. It kind of blocked the heavy wind, and it also blocked the heavy tumbleweed that could break loose at another time of year. So we pulled down, started to cross, came through about 4 miles outside of Jefferson, and the lights were suddenly right at the snow barriers, and then pulled over the top of the car. I rolled down the window and looked up, and I could see a gigantic craft with the lights. And I looked over at my husband and I tried to get his attention. He was driving and he was frozen to the wheel. There was nothing. His eyes weren't blinking. His hands were gripping the wheel. I looked to see if he was breathing. I tried to get him to speak. He didn't. It was almost like he had gone to sleep or was in a trance. Something was very wrong. And suddenly I felt the wheels start to scrape sideways on the road to the left. And the car lifted right over the nearest snow barrier, right over the top. And they were several feet tall. I was observing that we were drifting out into the high desert. Um, I wasn't super concerned because I had been taken, as I said, from age 2.5, but I wondered if we were going to be lost forever. If you Google that, Jefferson, little town, you can look out on that desert and see what it looks like. It's just flat as a pancake between the mountains. So we drifted over and took us quite a ways out into the desert. And then I felt the car settling down. So once that happened, I could see in front of me a giant craft landing. The next thing we knew, we were on Trout Creek Pass. About 3 hours later, it was dark, the headlights were on, the engine was running, and we had no idea how we got there. Absolutely no memory. And my husband didn't remember the car leaving the road. He had even less recall of this as I did. Um, so we're looking around. We began to feel extra concerned. How did we get there? Another 3 hours down the road, we had set the odometer when we left Denver. It hadn't moved. It was still the same as when we started down that pass. So we decided we had better get going, go the last 7 to 9 miles to our campsite. My parents and a family friend were waiting there, and they had gotten really worried. We're getting ready to go down to the ranch house. It was the only house on the area. We kept a mobile home. Others had some mobile homes there or RVs. Other than that, there was 1,800 acres of BLM land owned by the federal government, but we could roam that also. It was open to us on the ranch. So as we pulled in and the headlights struck the road, we saw my parents and a friend walking down the dirt road. They were going to borrow the phone, call the hospital, call the police, and see if they could locate us. They had come from Colorado Springs. There was only one road, the one we took from Denver, and one road from Colorado Springs, the route they had taken earlier that day. And my mom was going to have dinner ready for us, and it was way past that time. They had a fire going, but they came up to the window of the car and said, What happened?" Our answer had to be, "We don't know. We have no idea." And my mom was the type of person who she had a need to know all the time. So she pushed and pressed and said, "You've got to know. Where have you been for all these hours?" We did not know. So my dad, having worked in aerospace, both at Aerojet General in California, where Stanton Friedman worked, and he then moved to Colorado at a place called Command Sciences. He could never tell me what he did there, other than to work on something, put it in boxes, take it to a place called Jackass Flats, Nevada, and was in the tunnels for 2 weeks with whatever it was and then brought it home. So he was more open to, at the time, for me saying, maybe we were taken, maybe it was a UFO. We don't know. We're taking a guess, but I saw strange lights and I saw what I think was a craft. My memory after that is gone. So from then on, we began to have strange dreams, some recall of what we would call the grays. Um, I couldn't recall totally what occurred other than I had been taken into a ship. We weren't sure if my husband Ed was or not. Um, Fast forward to a meeting that I was holding here in Orlando once we moved here in 1985, and Kathleen Martin walked into the room. She had moved to Florida, and I just watched her for a while to see if she was an author and a speaker and this well-known person. Should I talk to her? So I finally did, invited her to lunch at my home. And when she came over and wanted to hear my story, we found a lot of commonalities between us. My dad was born in New Hampshire. She was from New Hampshire. We had family in the same state. However, When we lived in Gunnison, Colorado, when my husband got out of the military, we had no idea that Kathy Martin was just down the road from us about 20 minutes. And at one point on a certain day, my husband came in to have me come out from our apartment. There's a little college up there that he was attending, and he was watching a UFO. I went out and looked. We observed it in broad daylight for quite some time. We found out later on when I spoke to Kathy that she may have seen the same craft on the same day as she was walking home from work on the other side of the mountain. So we became friends. She did some hypnosis work on me that helped me to recall everything that occurred, that I was taken into the craft, that I was given some sort of wire insert at the time into my toe and up my leg. It later came back out between my big toe and the one next to it, formed quite a swelling. I had to get antibiotics, and it emptied out itself. The wire came out. Um, so we decided to write the book, The Alien Abduction Files. My story is the first third of the book. We have continued to work together ever since then, doing research and working with people, experiencers who call us for help. So that's my story. And a lot of her work led her to begin another branch of MUFON. And we are beginning to come together with field investigators, with those who are interested in working with people who have had this kind of experience and more. So I'd like to go over what the Experiencer Resource Team is and explain how that works and what occurs if you decide to fill out a questionnaire or someone calls you and asks about that. So have we got that up where I can see, Kevin?
Yeah, stand by. While we're waiting for that, what brought you to MUFON, Denise, and what year did you come into MUFON?
I belonged to MUFON before 2000, but I was not interested in becoming a field investigator and just following that path until 2003. And that's when I took the test.
And passed, and the rest is history.
And the rest is history. Yes. And I was being investigated at the time for some sightings and some experiences I had here in Florida. And I don't think we'll go into it tonight, but I know, Terry, you know about the box that was in my home to record anything and everything that happened to me. And MUFON has not found the finances to cover the amount of work it would take to go through the boxes of 13 of us who were a part of that experiencer study.
That was an amazing study and
Uh-huh.
well worth it. And I hope that at some point we can do that.
I, yeah,
We'll see. I
I
know
hope
that
so.
you, oh, go ahead. What?
I said, I hope so.
Oh, I also know that you were often monitored on your telephone. I remember many times talking to you, and we could actually hear other people talking, clicking, all kinds of things. Denise didn't live too far from me. I'm from St. Petersburg, Florida, and she's in Orlando. So talking with her, it was very interesting. They've always kind of been watching her, and she's had. Someday we'll have her back, and she can talk about her Men in Black experiences, which are just absolutely amazing. She's had more experiences than anybody else I know, really, and they're all very valid things that have happened, just high strangeness all around her, both through MUFON with extraterrestrial and also in the paranormal. So, yeah. But let you get back on. Kevin,
All
are we
right.
up and running for her presentation? Okay. All right. I guess that's coming up. There we go. Okay.
Haha, there we go. Um, That's okay. There we are. All right. I'd like to introduce the MUFON's Experiencer Resource Team. We changed it from research to resource because we deal with so much more other than just research. We're working with experiencers. We're working with scientists. As you'll see as I go along, how packed the resource team is with information and assistance and support. Okay, go ahead. So how is the ERT structured? You'll see that we are at the top. On the right, we have research and education. On the other side, support for experiencers, field investigators, and the CMS abduction section that we fill out if we are working with a questionnaire. We fill out an addendum that talks about our experience with an experiencer. So we're not totally separate from the field investigators. What we're finding now is who is a field investigator and who is interested in working with experiencers. And here we have our new director, that's Gwen. And she has just recently taken over for Kathy Martin, who has had to step down other than consulting. She's at our meetings, but she is no longer doing the day-to-day work. So we have Dr. George Medich. He is the assistant director. That's myself. It's an older picture. And then we have Tim Martin, PhD. We are both assistants to the directors. Okay. So how do we have our group put together? We now have 45 to 50 members who are abduction and contact specialists. And that's a way to reach, of course, www.mufon.com, and you can find the experiencers. It's now resource team. Okay. We have 6 psychological consultants. They are all degreed and working with this type of person. Some of them are hypnotists and some of them are just support psychologists. If someone requests to reach out to one of these individuals, we keep a list. And if you live in, let's say, Tennessee, we will look up to see if we have someone available, because there are others underneath these people that the experiencer can reach out to for assistance and help.
It's amazing.
All right, ERT resource consultants, and you see Kathleen Lester Velez and Don C. Donderi, and you'll see a little bit more about him as we move along. Okay, so what should you do? This is put in the middle of all these slides when it's actually pertaining to who do you contact if you're having paranormal experiences. I'm the specialist on the team for that. You can contact me at dmstoner1@gmail.com. And the reason this is now in this group, in the ERT, is because we're finding that many individuals who are having experiences and they're seeing entities, and we're having to explore that, they're finding that there may be something else involved. There may be some spirit involvement. We're working to prove all of this. And how do we sort it out? Okay. So, how would you like to join the ERT? How do you get there? Requirements for team membership. You must be kind, compassionate listeners, helpful and respectful, very much so. Be non-judgmental when speaking with the experiencer. You're not a licensed diagnostician, but you have got to be able to listen and be very neutral regarding what they're saying. Have a working knowledge of ET abduction, a belief that ET abduction is real, knowledge beyond the nuts and bolts, MUFON field investigator with investigative experience of at least 10 cases, and positive references from the state MUFON leaders. Okay?
Good to know.
Yeah. ERT membership training. Dr. George Medish does the orientation. And then I role play. I become the experiencer, and that trainee has to call me and question me as if I were their first case. So, any problems, difficulties that I see, or that I think I can help them with, we spend 2 to 3 hours on the phone getting that part of their work and training taken care of. Now, Kathy did supply the experiencer study paper and PowerPoint presentation to a new individual, but now Gwen will be doing that. Okay, part 2, your responsibility as a member of MUFON's team. Introduction to the ERT. The Experiencer Resource Team is an ever-expanding group of trained volunteers nationally and internationally who specialize in the abduction contact phenomenon. The ERT functions as a triage unit, contacting experiencers who have completed the Experiencer Questionnaire. Team members are non-judgmental listeners. We have a list of support groups and vetted therapists. Okay. Why does the MUFON have an ERT? Because we realize that some experiencers are emotionally fragile or do not have evidence or are wondering if their memories are real. They are not ready for an investigation, and the process of talking to a non-judgmental listener can reduce the level of anxiety by a great deal. We conduct research and educate MUFON members and the public through lectures, interviews, and the ERT Corner. That's written by Gwen Farrell. Okay, so witness options. The CMS report for an investigation where an ERT specialist, we wear 2 hats. The CMS investigation by a different investigator with your ERT involvement. And I'm going to talk about this just a little bit. The Experiencer Questionnaire for Non-Judgmental Listening and Referrals. So, if we have a field investigator who comes across a case that's a light in the sky, they call the person and they begin to talk, and that person begins to trust that field investigator not to make fun of them, not to laugh, not to make comments that are derogatory about what they're trying to tell you. It could be at the tail end of that investigative talk when they say, well, since I told you this, I think I need to tell you something else. This is where the field investigator needs to decide whether they want to refer them to our questionnaire. Do they want to work together on this case, on this event? That has occurred a great deal recently. People, field investigators, are more willing to take on this type of case because there are more of them. And these individuals want someone that they can trust and feel comfortable with. So if that field investigator feels comfortable, they can always come to one of us, contact one of us at the ERT to ask as many questions as you want, ask us to speak to the person, and then they would fill out their own report in the CMS, and one of us from the questionnaire would go to that block made just for us. Okay, not everyone is suitable for the MUFON ERT involvement. Who is not suitable? And mind you, we have this written down for a reason. Those with serious mental health issues, especially personality disorders. They are needy people who seek attention from a variety of specialists. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit. Often they have worn out their welcome with the professional mental health providers. They might be abusive. And we actually have a list, a no contact list, and I'm sure Terry's aware of it because it goes through headquarters. But we can get a hold of an individual who is I'm a wannabe experiencer. We have to know how to tell the difference. And that can be quite difficult. They will not expose themselves immediately. You have to speak to them several times. There's just a whole category of individuals, and they want to come onto the team and they want to take over. So there's a lot that we work with. Okay, go ahead. And who else is not suitable? People who are having strictly, oh, excuse me, that's my husband should get that phone. People who are having strictly paranormal experiences. Expect paranormal overlay in abduction cases. They are suitable. And I've talked about that just a little bit. I'll explain it a little more. People who are under demonic oppression or possession. People who have parasitic entity attachments. People who describe their contacts as evil. Those are things we all need to take a look at. And the mental states prior to reaching possession, it's important to know about that. The person becomes deeply depressed. This allows for demonic oppression to set in. This is why we find homes with families who are all under the fear and the events that take place in a home, and sometimes they just have to move out and start over. But an attachment will take place and demonic oppression takes place. The entity attaches to and controls the human being. This is not possession, it's an attachment. You can still have a change in personality. A person can be non-sociable. Oh, there are so many things that connect to this. The entity takes over the human body and the person in their control. The person will use words. This is a sign that rather than an ET, it is something else. It's help, help. They may swear. Um, they'll use words that's not a part of their normal vocabulary. They might even act out sexually or take on a vile odor. Nothing to do with ETs whatsoever, but we do see it. Our research. Experiencer survey background came from the Martin Stoner 2012 Abduction Experiencer Questionnaire. Martin Stoner put that together. That's myself coming up with questions from asking other individuals that we had worked with, from studying other cases, from reading. And the ERT members were invited to present questions they would like to ask experiencers. A man named Craig Lang, myself, and Michael Melton assisted in putting that together. Martin compiled additional questions based on academic research findings and personal interest. At first, there were 118 questions, true or false, multiple choice, and open-ended. 2 phases, the survey and American personality inventory was involved. The alien abduction syndrome, and you're going to see kind of a drawing of that. That included Bud Hopkins, Ted Davis, and Dr. Don C. Dundary. Compared those with UFO abduction syndrome to all 516 experiencers who took part in the study. And now the American Personality Inventory, as you can see where it says 600 questions on the original, and you can see where it says abductee and the grouping around that green circle versus simulator or control group, where there were just a few that fell into this category, and then some with no experience once they were rated. And Dr. Don Derry reduced that to 65 questions. And you can see how that cluster changed. We have the smaller amount of abductees, and from the bottom of that green circle, we see possible abductees leading all the way up to no experience, and there was no control group. Okay. Next, there we go. Special characteristics that abductees share. Anybody that intends to go to work as a field investigator or already is one might want to be conscious of this. So they will have a conscious recall of a close encounter and a non-human entity. And the observation was 70% of those who took that test had this. Again, awake when paralyzed, 60%. And the difference there is people want to call this sleep paralysis. It is if you're already asleep and wake up and find that you can't move. But if you are awake and you feel the paralysis setting in, that's something different altogether. You find strange pattern marks on their bodies, 65% of those who responded. Generational abduction experiences, 60%. Increased spirituality, 86%. Have they been healed by a non-human entity? 45% say they have. Empathic, 91% of those who have been abducted have become strongly empathic, sympathize with individuals more than they ever did before. They can sense when someone is just not up to par, is feeling sad, all of that. Increased intuitive or psychic ability, 65%. Increased paranormal phenomenon. This is where we have had to learn to deal with that. It's 50% of those who filled out the questionnaire had had paranormal phenomenon. How many want it to stop? 75% said no, and I'm one of those. Say ET's demeanor is businesslike, 65%. Okay. Now, the MUFON Experiencer Survey will show that these questions, how they're patterned along with survey versus abductee. The survey showed the percentage in pink, and the abductee shows the level that it comes up to, the other very close in most instances. Okay. A comprehensive guide on alien abduction and ET contact. This is available at MUFON's store, Amazon and Barnes & Noble. I wrote a chapter in here on the paranormal. This is a MUFON published book, and MUFON profits from the sales. Okay. Support. We have a vetted list of clinical therapists and hypnosis practitioners. Witnesses advise that this should not be taken lightly. Should be certain that they want to recall their repressed memories. It is not true that hypnosis alone will resolve anxiety. It may increase it. Additionally, they might confabulate false memories to please the hypnotist, for one thing, but we are now working pretty closely with those we are working with, and we have learned to tell some things. We don't give away secrets, but I can let everybody know. We're pretty sure of what we're doing, and we also advise them, are you sure you want to open that box? Because if you open the box, you can't put the lid back on. So many choose not to undergo hypnosis. So a list of support groups or workshops, peer facilitated. And we have a list of those. So, and I believe it might be somewhere on the MUFON.com, so they can find out where they can go to attend a meeting or to ask for help. Now, when we send out a list of practitioners to someone, we ask them to sign this disclaimer, because we are removing ourselves from any liability totally and move on. So Kathy was sure to include that in our work. Okay. And the dangers of hypnosis. If the client has a history of mental illness, regression hypnosis can exacerbate it. Yes, it can. So we're very careful to get a good reading on that before saying yes to any of it, or refer them to a therapist. Memories retrieved through hypnosis might not be entirely accurate, especially the small details. And people can lie under hypnosis. It's not a truth serum. We have to be aware of what they're saying, why they're saying it. We do something called an intake that takes up to 2 hours prior to doing any hypnosis on anyone. It's like you filling out your medical form at the doctor's office for the first time. It's something very similar to that. Traumatic memories that are uncovered during hypnosis can create additional anxiety for the client. If the hypnotist has not been properly trained to work with experiencers, the sessions might be a disaster for the client. Absolutely. Many hypnotherapists do not have an extensive background in a mental health field. And the ERT has an application and requests supporting documents. We have a 5-member vetting team. And that's okay. Accurate memories can be retrieved. These are the benefits. Coping strategies can be learned. We can suggest those to someone under hypnosis, and they can agree with us prior to the hypnosis, some ideas that they would like to use to help them. Emotional working through can be achieved, especially the hypnosis practitioner is a licensed mental health professional. Memories that are recovered might not be traumatic. The experiencer might find that he or she was treated well. That might take care, the ET, about the experiencer. Okay? So, what we ask is first, is what we look for. If a person claims that they have got marks on their body, and you can't see real clear on the bruises here, but a lot of the time we have seen long 3-finger marks all the way across the top of an arm, and sometimes what might be a thumb mark underneath, as if they were guided along strongly wherever they were going. So we ask that they draw on this, exactly where the bruises are and what they looked like, so that they can keep it clear in their own mind. They'll feel drained of energy. They can feel sore all over, not just where the bruise is. Okay. Fluorescence is not a certain indicator of an abduction. It can be, but not always. Dermatologists often see a fluorescence in the genital area as the result of a fungus or a bacteria or a combination. Also, certain detergents, pesticides, and oils fluoresce. When illuminated with the ultraviolet light, it can be hoaxed. You can see the marks on the arm below, the triangle and the circle. Those are one of the more common marks that we're finding on abductees. Okay. Paranormal overlay. Most prevalent in abduction cases. 2 are common. Now, I'm going to explain this because it's normally a video, but light orbs in a home, this is not an ET. This individual filmed this little entity, and when you see the video, it looks like it has wings, and it is not a bug. You can tell for sure. It comes out underneath the door, as you can see on the right. It came up in the air, flew over the individual laying on the bed, and you can see it dive directly into his leg. It's still not an indication that an abduction has occurred. We're trying to figure out, does this fall in between somewhere? Is it a separate entity? Is it a spirit? Or is it an ET that does some kind of healing? We don't know. Have you experienced the sensation of unexplained motion in your mattress, such as the feeling that something unseen is walking on your bed? From that survey, 58% said yes. Abductees, 75%. We call them bed walkers. And someone that has been abducted and can talk about seeing a craft, seeing ETs, will often wake up at night to feel something that they can't see walking on the bed. And sometimes there are indents, as sometimes spirits do. They'll sit down and actually indent the mattress. There are two separate things going on here. One is possible abduction, and one is spirit. Okay. I really want to thank you for listening. The Alien Abduction Files is the book I wrote with Kathy. I have a chapter in the Extraterrestrial Contact, What to Do If You Have Been Abducted. And this is Kathy's new book, the 60th anniversary of Captured, and she has added some fantastic documents and information in the back of this book. So I hope you have learned, and I hope that you are interested in what I had to say. So I really thank you for having me guest tonight.
Yes, this was amazing. Actually, it's hard to believe all that the ERT does for people who have had experiences, and I am so grateful that they do this, because what would you do if something was moving on your bed? And actually, I do remember years ago when my children were little. They're all in their 40s and 50s now, but seeing an indent right on the bed and thinking to myself, you got to be kidding me, what the heck is that? And so these things really do happen, and it's amazing when they do, but it's also terrifying to some degree. And especially when it happens when you're home alone or you're sleeping by yourself, something like that. It's very difficult. And that orb going right into somebody, I have actually had an experience with something like that too while I was in the hospital, and I did get healed. So when she mentioned that that could be a healing orb, that really spoke to me. So gosh, thank you so much, Denise. It's amazing what you all do and how dedicated you all are, how much time and energy you put into this. I can't say enough. And I'm sure I speak for everybody here listening. Thank you. Thank you so very much for all that you do. It is very much appreciated. I
Well,
really never understood it that way.
yeah, well, I'm glad that I did it. And Terry, I appreciate your supporting us and helping along what we do, taking any suggestions that are made and considering those and how they would fit and work, because our field investigators just have so much to do and so much to learn, that I think this was beneficial to them. I hope it was. And
Yeah.
to anybody who has had an experience, they know what you yourself go through as an investigator and what we go through if we have to delve into this other realm.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us, because it's mind-boggling. And at this point, I'd like to open the floor up for questions and answers for Denise. If anybody has anything specific they'd like to share, um, I'm sure she'd be happy to take, um, anybody's questions. So I don't know how we'll do this, because we have a live audience as well as having an audience online. So, okay, those that want to ask a question online will need to unmute themselves, but please be careful, because if 15 people unmute at once, that's going to be a disaster. So use caution and go ahead. And then if there's anybody here that would like to, we have a separate mic other than mine up here. So go ahead, we're opening the floor now. And we do have one person here local who has a question for you, Denise.
Okay.
Hello. Hi, my name is Mary. And I was interested in something you said. Thank you so much for all your information. It's so eye-opening. So you mentioned that at some experience that you had a wire that came out of between your toes.
Yes, when we were taken off that valley and I was taken into a craft, then under hypnosis, I did relive that. quite a lengthy wire. And it stayed there for years until I felt something come up between my toes. I could feel the wire and I went to the doctor. And his response was, I don't know what that is. Let's put you on antibiotics. I think he was completely stumped. So yes, it was a wire, very thin.
So
And
Dr. Lear never got in touch with you about that then, unfortunately, huh?
did you pull it out?
Unfortunately, I did.
Oh,
It actually started to break off like a twig after it got exposed to the light and came through my skin. So every time I tried to grab a piece, it would crumble.
oh, so like you couldn't like maybe turn it over to someone to be analyzed, because that would be amazing evidence.
I know it would be, and it's gone. Kathy and I traced another one in my arm all the way to the back of my hand. We were going to have it removed at that time, and 2 days before, it disappeared.
Wow.
Mm, yeah, very strange.
Yeah. Well,
Thank
thank
you
you
for
very
asking.
much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone online have any questions? Oh, okay, we have another question here. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I wasn't sure if I was unmuted or not. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay, good. Hi, Denise. Thank you so much for your presentation. It's so informative and helpful. I have a question
Sure.
in that, in your long experience and also, of course, working with Kathleen Marden, have you seen the nature of contact experiences change over time? Like the way the experiences occur, whether people see them as positive or negative, whether they're associated, whether or not contact with NHEs are associated with craft. I'm kind of curious, has the nature of these seemed to change over time? And if so, do you associate that with cultural influences or actually some other reason for that change?
Oh, good question. We're looking at people that had cases like mine. We are all baby boomers, if you stop to think about it. The great majority are baby boomers, and they're just now telling their stories and then adding the paranormal to it, or what could be paranormal. So that's a group of individuals. We were able to find the little implants about the size of a grain of rice. Of course, Dr. Lear removed a couple. We wish we had someone else around like him. Now we don't. However, technology, and I'm speaking of that, of the ET, because we're not finding those little grains of rice. We're not finding those little lumps under the skin that we used to ask the experiencer to go out and buy a pretty heavy duty magnet, put it over that little grain of rice and lift, and it lifted the skin and the object. That's no longer occurring. We think that they are doing something similar to skin grafts. So behind the knee, behind the ear especially, you may find a few little itchy bumps and you may see a little red mark. We think that what they're doing is implanting something that way in the way of a skin graft. So having said that, how do they take us? Not so many are reporting aboard a craft as much. And do they take us out of bed and walk us down the street or tell us to pull over in the car or walk somewhere? No. More people beyond, younger than the baby boomer group are leaving their bodies. So we're having out of the body experience, and we don't know if they're causing it, if both need to be involved, but that's happening a lot now.
That's amazing. You know, I don't know if I mentioned this to everybody, but do you know that the ERT does what they do and they're volunteers, just like I am? They spend all this time and energy and doing what they do. So This is why when we're at the meetings, you know, we do donations and things like that, because we do send in to MUFON to support what we do. And this is just amazing, all that you do. It's just amazing to me.
With your
You're full
support,
time.
I spend approximately 15 hours a day speaking to individuals and working cases.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That is amazing. There's got to be a special place for you in heaven, I'm sure. I'm sure of it. Does anybody else want to unmute and have a question? Don't be shy.
Hello, Denise.
Hello.
I was just wondering, would you say that what you describe as a light is in fact a light, or is it something else?
What I describe as a light.
Like in your story, you say you saw it.
Oh,
light.
yes. I saw two gigantic yellow lights, and they were close together. And then when they moved over the top of our vehicle, I could look up and see a very dark shape. And that one was really different from any of. I've been trying to find someone that's seen something similar. If you took two dinner plates and put them bottom to bottom, like this, so that the narrow part and the bottoms are touching, and there was a ring of lights around that centerpiece, and the two spun independently.
Wow.
Yeah.
Go ahead and repeat that. I think you were muted.
Yeah, he was.
I was just thinking, like in my mind, when people say lights, I think lights have to have a source. So in my mind, when you say light, I'm thinking more of like a cloak ship.
Well, one thing I can say is I've had a case for, it's got to be 15 years now, and they are retired Coast Guard officers. And they don't speak very often, but they trusted me and told me something that we're watching out for, and it's occurring more and more. So are you going to see lights independently? Yes. What you want to watch for is, do you see a football-sized orb? And sometimes the shape of a football? They will explode into a being. It's not a craft, it's a being. So these Coast Guard officers that I know witnessed this. A television set that they had unplugged inside their home because it wasn't working anymore came on. And that's with the plug out of the wall. Then this entity imploded back into its orb shape. And what they thought to do, for some reason, they don't know what drew their attention to it, it shot straight up in the air. And when they looked, there was a huge, I want to call it a mothership, some of us do, a gigantic UFO that this orb entered.
That's amazing.
Amazing.
That would be something to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
We do get a lot of reports from police officers, Coast Guard, military folks. What they see is just mind-boggling out there. So we definitely are not alone. We are not alone.
No,
is there anyone else?
They're
Pardon?
credible witnesses, aren't they, Terry? When you have a policeman, a fireman, a doctor that need help, but they don't want their names used, I don't blame them. They could lose their jobs. Are they still losing their jobs if they are found out and they're talking? Yes.
Yes. Yes, and they're also losing their pensions, which is even worse, you know,
Yes.
because you know, I mean, we all have to live and move forward. So that's a difficult choice to make. Either tell the truth or keep your mouth shut and keep your money. You know, it's a terrible thing.
You hear me? I don't know if y'all could hear me. I have a question.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Pamela, and I'm in Mississippi, and I'm working for the VA, and I wanted to wait till I was retired, which will be in a couple weeks. And I wanted to know two things. One, should I keep my license if I'm a master social work therapist? I work with the veterans. Wanted to keep my license because I'm thinking about being, it's an ERT, but I'm thinking about it. I've been thinking about it for years, but I want to get more information. And also I have so many occurrences and events, but I've never felt an experiencer, and I felt like I didn't have that qualification to be able to help the people, you know. So I'm not sure if I don't know if that's qualification or not.
Well, one of the sections of that ERT talk that I had tonight explains how if you want to sign up and you want to be vetted as a therapist, then you would call me. I'm going to be your first case. And I'm
Good.
going to walk you through every question you ask and add more to it. And by the time you're through, you would be able to say, I don't think this is for me. So
Oh,
absolutely.
good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I did meet Kathleen Martin, and I did read your book. I've done all that. I'm on it the second time. I'm trying to learn. I'm constant avid UFO. You know, that's all my life is. So in the last 10 years, but I didn't have an actual experience. I have a lot of strange occurrences, but the so-called experiencer. And I know Kathleen said that's not a qualification, you know,
Right.
to be a volunteer. But is that right? It's not an essential qualification to
No,
become.
it's not essential. No. You would receive some paperwork, fill it out, and
Mhm.
have all of your certifications and so forth to send to us. Then we take a look at it, and again, it showed where there are 5 of us who make the decision to put you on the team. It's not an easy place to go. However, once you're there, you'll
Yeah.
find it fascinating.
And do you feel like it's better to keep your license, is what I was asking you, because I'm going to retire and I was going to either leave the license or not. Is it better to have your license if you're doing this?
It depends if you want to be vetted as a therapist or if you just want to be one of those who supports and talks to experiencers.
Okay, so if
Yeah.
I want to be a volunteer,
Yeah.
yeah, I wouldn't have to have it. Okay,
Yeah.
that's it. Thank you. I would love, thank you for all your information. I'm
You're
so
welcome.
excited meeting you after reading and everything about you. Okay. Mhm.
Thank you.
Mhm.
We do have a question here in house. Go ahead. Keep it close to your mouth. It's on.
It is not. Okay. Yeah, the question is that we were talking about this yesterday at our house and about abductions. And have you had any past people give you an account of being taken to another outer space or to another star system or something like that? And then I have a second part
Okay.
to this question. Go ahead.
Yes, we have had people say that they could see what looked like planets, as if the craft had some sort of glass bottom. They were shown areas of the sky that they didn't recognize, and there are very, very few, but some that say they were taken to another planet. We can't prove any of that, of course, but when you come up with some drawings, for instance, Betty Hill's drawing of the stars that she was given on board the craft was studied for years before they discovered that it did exist. We didn't have the strength of like the Hubble, all of those types of things when she was taken. So we're learning more and more. And so, yes, I hope that helps. And you had a second question?
Second question was last week, I think the government disclosed a video and showed a craft at high speed going across the sea, diving in, coming back out, and splitting into two. I'm just curious if anybody said that they've been taken underwater or anything around the planet.
Good question.
Uh-huh. I know of 2. And we're trying to find out if this occurred. Well, see, we're researching past lives. For any of you who believe or don't believe in those, they have been somewhere underwater. And we don't know what it is. Is this some sort of a water planet they've been taken to that consists of some sort of jello-like substance, and the creatures live in that liquid? Or is it somewhere here? So we've got a few stories along those lines, and we don't have any answers for those. We're working on it.
That's
One
interesting.
question brought up was, are they owners of this planet? You know, are regions coexisting above the water and they're existing below the water? There's, you know, so far advanced. That was the other scenario that was brought up.
So you say
that I've been abducted there, but I didn't do the
To know him is to love him, Denise.
all right. Oh, well, no question is a bad question. You would not believe, and I know Terry's experienced some of it, something that we find out the person is very serious about. Don't make fun of them because it could have happened. We can't prove otherwise. So we say, just tell us what you feel you're comfortable with.
Very true. Anybody online have any questions?
Denise, hi, this is Kathy Starling.
Hi.
Hi. I am very, very new to all of this. I have some experience through just watching the History Channel.
Uh-huh.
But was wondering, in the corporate world, when I was an employee, we had programs where you could shadow an executive
Mhm.
and just, you know, literally what it sounds like, you know, just be a fly on the wall. I guess I never did it, but you know, maybe
Uh-huh.
chance for some input. But I was just wondering if if you went into the role as an ERT, or if you went in to do the questionnaire to see if you were suited for it. Is that something, and I mean, maybe this is something that could be that is already on MUFON TV, but where you could see an experiencer talking about their experience? And what I'm saying is, could someone shadow you, for instance?
Yes, we've done that, especially with field investigators. Of course, we've got the COVID still lurking out there, but yes, I always took a field investigator with me if I had a case and I was doing a face-to-face. Absolutely. Mhm.
Were you asking a different question?
Or yeah, did
Yeah.
you mean that?
I was wondering if she was asking, could we remote view someone that was having the experience? Was that what you were asking?
Either way, yeah, that I hadn't thought about that, but I was thinking like in person, but that would be even more practical, remote view.
Hmm.
Right.
Are you a remote viewer?
Position to do it at this stage. It just occurred to me that it was this something that you had ever done or contemplated?
It's not something we've really contemplated, but we do have some individuals who are capable of remote viewing, and one in particular that I will use if I'm not getting the right answers, if I'm not clear on what is being told, and I have had some luck with that. But percentage-wise, I can't give that to you because I haven't kept track of it.
Hmm.
Are you a remote viewer? Is that
I am brand new. No, I'm not.
no? Okay.
Just kind of a question I thought would be of interest.
Oh yeah, it is. Thank you for asking. Yes, remote viewing can come into play. and that's up to us personally and individually right now. Like I said, I have someone that I have asked a couple of times to look into a case for me, because the individual actually works with police departments in locating missing people and children, with great success. So she has to work her regular job on the side, and then she has a different name under the auspices of her remote viewing.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
That's interesting conversation right there.
Yep.
Does anybody else have any questions?
I have one more for Denise, if that's okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, Denise, you talking about the folks who were underwater and the folks that were perhaps even though it couldn't be proven, in a gel-like substance is something that I've never heard before. And I wanted to ask, could you share with us some other things that we who are not as familiar with and as involved with experiencers, we might find really surprising, but it comes up. I'd be interested in hearing if you have any other points like that that you could share.
Well, again, I would just say is don't dismiss anything that is said to you. Begin to look at it and research it. And if you say you've had something odd happen and you can dismiss it yourself, don't do that. Take another look at it. Don't make up anything to go along with it. But for instance, there was and I think Terry knows this, there was a restaurant here. It was actually a Whole Foods, and they had chairs outside that you could sit at to eat. And being Florida, we can do that the majority of the year. So I went and met someone there, and was sitting, just chatting, had some lunch, and across from me, I noticed an individual who was wearing clothing and hair and skin all beige, all the same shade. And I thought, nah, something doesn't look right. Maybe I should just stop looking at him. But he was staring at me. And I noted that he had a notebook and he had a bottle of water and never took any of it. But he did take notes in his notebook. When I was getting ready to leave, he stood up. I hadn't moved yet. He got up, picked up his notebook, and next to me was a pillar that was holding up an awning, that was the outside of the restaurant. It was on a corner, so it was V-shaped. There were parking lots to my back. He walked past the pillar and didn't come out the other side. We could have touched elbows. And I have no idea what that was, but I was being observed for about 45 minutes.
That's amazing.
So yeah, it's just an area or a place where some of these odd things occur. That restaurant is now closed. Whole Foods has shut down. And there's another restaurant there. I have not gone over to see what I would experience, if anything at all. So that's an odd story. That just give you an example of what someone could say to you. And they might say, I want an answer. Why did that happen? Right away. So yeah, that's just an example of something that's odd. Just be aware of what's around you, what's going on, and become more involved in surroundings of you and others. And you'll perhaps see some things that you wouldn't normally notice that are unusual.
Thank you. I think some folks refer to that as situational awareness. Thank you, Denise.
You're welcome.
Well, okay, we're running out of time for our United MUFON meeting. So we're going to thank you again, Denise, for sharing tonight and being here with us. It has really been just a wonderful time seeing how you all work with the ERT and all that you're involved in. You all do so much. And like I said earlier, your volunteers, all of you, and giving so much of yourselves. We truly applaud you and appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Terry. Thank you very much. Appreciate your friendship and support.
Thank you. It was good seeing you.
Good seeing you too, face to face one of these minutes.
I know. It'll happen.
Okay. All
Okay.
right.